Hey guys, welcome to our 8th and final week of remote learning, right? This is our last week of school here. So thank you guys for working so hard these last 7 weeks here. And I hope we can finish up strong here and end on a positive note. All right, we are going to learn this week. We got a couple lessons and a review. The last thing we got to learn is the quadratic formula and the discriminant. We'll learn this over the next 2 days, and then Friday will be kind of a review day, and we'll take one final quizzes, and that is going to be our school year. All right, so let's start with a little review here, right? Directions say to solve the following quadratic equations by factoring or using inverse operations, the square roots, right? So let's see, we have x squared minus 7x plus 2 is equal to 0. All right, well, here's a little factoring chart. All right, when we fill this out, we want to find factors of 2 that add the negative 7. All right, well, my factors of 2 are just 1 times 2. Oh, but somehow I got to get the negative 7, huh? Well, that's not going to work, all right? How about if I try using inverse operations? Let's see. Well, I have an x, and I got an x squared. That's not going to work with inverse operations either. So that means we need to learn a third way of solving quadratic functions or quadratic equations. And this third way is going to be right here, right? When we cannot factor a quadratic equation, we can use the quadratic formula to solve, all right? So we're going to be solving using the quadratic formula today. All right. So the quadratic formula, that's a method of solving that can be used to find the exact solutions of any quadratic equations. All right, so anytime we have an x squared in our problem, all right, I can always use this quadratic formula. All right, well, sometimes it is a little quicker to do factoring or inverse order of operations, right? But sometimes I don't have that option, like in example 1 here. All right, so if the quadratic equation is written in standard form, right, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, right? That's the standard form of a quadratic equation, all right? So then we can use the quadratic formula, right, which is here in this box, right? X is equal to opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Wow, that was a lot. All right. That is a lot. That is a big formula. All right. So we're actually going to dissect that up, and we're not going to talk about all of that today. All right. We're actually just going to look for a little piece of this quadratic formula so that tomorrow we can do the whole thing. All right. So the first thing when we're doing the quadratic formula is to kind of break it up into the pieces, right? We have to figure out what are those a, b, and c values. All right. So the next part here, right, is identifying the a, b's, and c's of a quadratic. All right, so again, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, right? I got to find my a value, my b value, and my c value. All right, so that's always going to be the first step with the quadratic formula, is to identify those a, b, and c values. All right, and if you're following along with the notes here, right, great. Write down what I write down. If not, all right, then this is when it's going to be time to start getting out a sheet of paper and a pen or pencil and kind of write down what I'm writing down here, okay? So we're asked to find the values of a, b, and c of the following quadratic equations, all right, and pay attention to the signs. All right, so if you're following along, writing these down, all right, go ahead and write down example 2, and we can write the problem here as 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 is equal to 0. Okay, so we have to identify the a, b, and c values. Well, a is going to be that number in front of my x squared, so my a value is 2. My b is going to be that number in front of the x, all right, so it's a positive 3. And my c value is going to be that number without any variables, which is going to be negative 5. All right, so this is, we got to be careful with the signs, right? There's a negative sign in front of that 5, so that means my c value is negative 5. All right, and that's all we're going to do for these next three problems is just identify the A, B, and C values, because that is the first and one of the most important steps in doing this quadratic formula. All right, example 3 here. So again, write this down. If you don't have these notes printed, is going to be x squared minus 2x minus 7 is equal to 0. Okay, so again, my a value is going to be that number in front of my x squared. All right, in this case, I don't see a number, but there is one there, right? This is that invisible number 1. All right. In math, right, we've been talking about the last 2 years here, right? If there's no number in front of a variable, then that number is 1. All right. So my a value is 1 here. My b value is going to be -2. And my c value is going to be -7. All right. So again, pay attention to the signs. All right. Here we go. Example 4. It's 4x squared minus x plus 9 is equal to 0. Okay, so why don't we pause the video and have you guys identify the A, B, and C values. All right, let's see how we did here. All right, so my A value should be 4. My B value is going to be -1, right? Because negative x is really -1. And then my C value should be +9. Awesome. Hopefully you got that, but if not, it's okay because we're going to get plenty of practice of identifying our A, B, and C values. All right, so like I said, right, we're not going to do the whole entire quadratic formula today. We're just going to look for the little piece of it, all right? And this is probably the second most important piece of it, right, is this thing called the discriminant, all right? The discriminant is just the value that's underneath my radical here, right? You can see it here in red. It's the b squared minus 4ac part, all right? That discriminant is going to tell us a lot of things, all right? So here's the definition, right? This is the expression under the radical sign in the quadratic formula, right? That's this b squared minus 4ac piece of this. All right, and what the discriminant will tell us is how many real solutions the quadratic equation has. All right, so that's important because sometimes our quadratic formula has one solution, sometimes it has 2 solutions, and sometimes it has no solutions. All right, and if we identify, if we identify A, B, and C first, and then we use this discriminant or the b squared minus 4ac, right, that can tell us a lot of information. All right, and sometimes we're done with a problem because if we don't have a solution, then I don't need to finish the rest of the problem. All right, so here this little chart is kind of started for you, all right? And if you're writing these notes out at home, do not write out all this information, all right? That will take you way too long, all right? Just use my copy of the answer key when you are doing the homework later today, okay? So do not write this whole table out. Just kind of follow along with me, all right? And then when it's time for the homework, use my notes, my answer key, all right? So here we go. All right, we're going to start with this left column over here, right? So if our b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, all right, we're going to see how many solutions we have here. All right, you can see that I worked out this example, right? I identified my A, B, and C values. I plugged it in for b squared minus 4 times A times C, and you get 36 minus 28, which is equal to 8. All right, and 8 is greater than 0, so therefore we are going to get 2 solutions here. All right, so if your discriminant is greater than 0, then you get 2 solutions. All right, in this middle column here, right, this is my quadratic equation. X squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. All right, again, I identified my A, B, and C values, and I plugged it in as b squared minus 4 times A times C. All right, so b squared gives us 36. 4 times A times C gives us 36, right? 36 minus 36 is 0. All right, 0 is equal to 0. All right, so if our discriminant comes out as 0, then we have 1 solution. All right, so again, if your discriminant is equal to 0, then we get one solution. All right, and our third scenario that we can get, all right, is when our b squared minus 4ac is less than 0. All right, so in this example, it's x squared minus 6x plus 11. All right, so again, identify your a, b, and c values. All right, then we're going to plug it in as b squared minus 4 times a times c, and we get 36 minus 44, and that is equal to a negative 8. All right, and negative 8 is less than 0. All right, and if that's the case, this is where we have no solution. All right, so if we work out our discriminant and any time is less than 0, meaning a negative number, then it is no solution. All right, now it's time to do some examples, all right? So now is the time where you can pick up that pen and pencil again and start writing these out, okay? Because again, we're gonna need practice with finding the discriminant to tell us how many solutions we have. All right, so directions for these problems, as well as on the homework later today, it's going to be find the discriminant, right? And this is that b squared minus 4ac, and then the number of real solutions. All right, so in example 5, we have 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 is equal to 0. All right, so my a value is 2. My b value is negative 3. And my c value is 5. All right, so now I'm going to plug in my a, b, and c in the correct spot here to find my discriminant. All right, my b squared minus 4 times a times c. Okay, so my b value goes here, right? So this is going to be negative 3 squared minus 4 times a times c. All right, if you notice in these first couple examples, I have this kind of structure set up for you. I have the parentheses in there, but the last two examples, right, I don't have any structure there. I want you to do that. All right, so here we go. Now it's time to do some simplifying, all right? So now, like for this part here, right, I would just put it into your calculator, all right, or you can do it the long way, all right? So negative 3 squared means negative 3 times negative 3, which is positive 9. All right, and we have minus, so now I have to do 4 times 2 times 5. All right, so if that's what we're doing, right, I would just use a calculator, right? 4 times 2 times 5, and that gives us 40. All right, well, now I have 9 minus 40, and that gives us negative 31. All right, so that means my discriminant is negative 31. And again, if I have a negative discriminant, right, anything less than 0, I have no solution. All right, that kind of makes sense. All right, let's try another one. All right, example 6, we have 6x squared minus 5x minus 1 is equal to 0. All right, again, I'm going to identify my a, b, and c first, right? So I have 6 for my a value. I have negative 5 for my b value, and I have negative 1 for my c value. All right, so after you identify your a, b, and c, now we're going to find the discriminant, right? We're going to find this b squared minus 4ac. All right, so my b value goes here, which is negative 5 squared minus 4 times a times c. All right, so now I got to do negative 5 squared. Well, negative 5 squared, right? It's not going to work on a standard calculator. All right, so maybe I change my calculator up to scientific. All right. I got to find parentheses. Yeah, I don't like this scientific. All right, we're going to go back to just a standard calculator, and we're going to say, right, negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25, right? Negative 5 squared is a positive 25 minus, now I have 4 times 6 times negative 1, right? So 4 times 6 times negative 1. Whoop. Try that again. 4 times 6 times 1 negative is a negative 24. All right, and now I have 25 minus a negative 24. All right, so here we got to be careful and watch our signs here. All right, so minus a negative, right, is going to become a positive. So this is really 25 plus 24. And that gives us 49. So our discriminant is 49. All right, 49 is definitely greater than 0. So that means I'm going to have 2 solutions. All right, number 7. All right, we have x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 0. All right, again, we start off by finding the a, b, and c values. All right, so my a value is 1. My b value is positive 4. And my c value is positive 4. All right, now you can see this time I don't have that structure set up, so we're going to do it by hand. All right, so now I have to figure out my discriminant now, the b squared minus 4ac. So I take my b value, square it, and it's minus, all right, this 4 is always there. Okay, 4 times a times c. 4 times a times c. All right, my a value is 1, and my c value is 4. All right, so now I'm going to do some simplifying, right? 4 squared means 4 times 4, which is 16, minus, well, 4 times 1 times 4, right? I can do that in my calculator. 4 times 1 times 4 gives us 16 as well. So now we have 16 minus 16, well, that gives me 0. All right, so that means my discriminant is 0. And again, if I have discriminant of 0, that means I have 1 solution. All right, why don't you guys pause the video and see if you guys can work through number 8 here. All right, so here we go. Let's see how we did. Right, so a value is 1. Our b value should be 5. And our c value is going to be 2. All right, so now I'm going to find my discriminant, my b squared minus 4 times a times c. Right, so 4 times 1 times 2. Well, my b squared, that's going to give me 5 squared, gives me 25, minus 4 times 1 times 2, well, that gives me 8. All right, so now I have 25 minus 8, and that gives me 17. So that means my discriminant is 17, and because my discriminant is 17, and 17 is greater than 0, that means I have 2 solutions. Awesome. Hopefully that makes a little sense. All right. If not, like I said, you have this answer key. It's going to be posted in the week 8 folder of Schoology. So make sure you reference that when you start the homework, which you can do now. Nice job.